And so speaking of television, because you've done some TV parts as well, right? With Law and Order and some other different things like that. And then obviously doing live theater. I don't know if there's one that necessarily I can say you prefer, but I mean, what's the differences or how do you feel about one over the other?
I'm prepared to say to you that I love the stage more than anything. The stage is my first home, my first love, but I certainly enjoy very much doing television and film. It's a slightly different mode in the sense that in the theater, it's live, it's immediate, it's ephemeral, it happens, and then it's over. Film, of course, is recorded, either television or film. It's a recorded medium, and it's a more specific medium, a more precise medium, in that several takes can be made or done in the making of a scene, and then the editor is able to piece together what he or she needs to create a film. We have much less autonomy. Or much less control, I would say, over our work on television or in film, which is fine. That's the way it is. That's the beast. That's just how it is. Um, but it's also very, very satisfying work, gratifying in many ways, because it is precise and it is usually the best of. Whereas in the theater, sometimes if there's a bobble or something, you've just got to move right past it, and it can't get in the way. There's a bit of a thrill ride on stage, and certainly for audiences to watch live and in person. There's something visceral, something electric, something scary, something really beautiful about it. Then there is, and I like the roller coaster, by the way. I'm a roller coaster fan. So I think, I don't know, I think most actors that I know love a roller coaster. So maybe there's something there. Maybe I'm onto something.
Right.
But film and television are chopped up a bit more in the process of making it. You'll go in, you'll set up, you'll to do a take of a scene, and then you'll step away, and then the V team will come on. We'll go to our dressing rooms, and most likely look at lines for the next scene, or continue to look at lines for that scene, and then you come back whenever the camera setup is shifted, so that if it was a one shot, generally speaking, it's a master that is shot first. Not always, but sometimes it's a general process, and that's with a lot of people in the room, and then they break it down into a two-shot or a single or an ECU, a close-up. And so between all of those takes, the camera has to be set up differently and moved around, and the lighting has to be set up differently and moved around. So we spend a lot of time on one scene in the dressing room, waiting for the set to be for the shot to be set up, and then we come back to the set and we shoot it again from someone else's perspective, or looking at two people together reacting to what's happening in the scene. And then that takes usually, it's about a week or maybe 10 days, not quite 10 days. These days, I think it's more like a week. No, I better say it's about 10 days per episode of television. So, and they're generally speaking 12 to 14-hour days. When you get toward the end of the shot, whenever whenever it has to be completed, so that it can go to editing and then it can be aired. So there's a big difference in terms of pressure. They're trying to get the shot on the set, and time is money. So anytime that you're on a shoot, you know that you've got a little pressure just by virtue of the fact that there are people there being paid, and you are too. And if you can't remember your lines, yikes. Or if you bobble a line, then the script supervisor will come over and say, okay, we just want to make sure you know this is the line, the actual line. And then, of course, you have the pressure of a director or a producer who's there and wants that shot done, wants that scene done, so they can keep on schedule. They don't want to pay overtime. And but generally speaking, TV shows can go into overtime fairly quickly because you never know what's going to happen. People are very generous, though. The other thing about television and film is that if it is a comedy, it's very, very challenging because no one can laugh. There's no laugh. You have to trust that you're funny. And because if they do laugh on the set, then that scene is not worth anything. They have to reshoot. So That's also really different. We're used to the immediate response of an audience on stage, but on film and in television, there is no live audience. The most similar of the mediums between filmed entertainment and live on stage is a sitcom, because a sitcom is live, typically shot live with a live studio audience. So you hear the response, and it is the closest to theater that television gets. So yes, there's so much to know, but we work with actors to let them know that that versatility is important. There is on-camera acting classes. There are on-camera acting classes, and those are available to students, and it's important that they take them so that they understand the process by which film and television is made versus theater, and so they can be versatile and pay the rent. That's the other thing that television and film does. It pays the rent. It's quite good pay.
You have to be pretty much willing to take what comes to you, right? As an actor, within reason.
Within reason, sure. Within your own set of principles. Students are certainly hungry to work. Young actors who are right out of college are always hungry to work. I remember it well. So it is. I think. I don't know that I've ever turned down a role, but I've never really been offered anything that was controversial. I think it's always important that young actors understand that sometimes there are things required of a role. We have to, as actors, be okay with that, and there's nothing wrong with saying no to a role that feels like it will challenge your own principles, your own values. So those are things to always remember, and to not be ashamed of the fact that this is what I believe, and I understand that this is the required. I'm not that person. Certainly, specifically speaking about nudity and things like that, it has to have integrity. I mean, those are things that really are, I think, very, very specific and need to be addressed. And we're very specific about that with students. Call me, and I will find out what the process is, who the people are, the producers, and so on. Having been in the business long enough, we have to protect each other and make sure. And that's very rare, I think, these days. Very rare situation. But yeah, there are moments. There are times. I did a really not a controversial, but just a really bad guy on Law and Order SVU, and really, really bad guy. And I took the role because it was my first role on television, and it was a guest star lead, and there's no way I wasn't going to do it. But I also realized that there was a little bit of basically nudity. And now this was NBC, and nothing was shown, but it was an odd sense shooting the actual scene. And I remember my mother, I told my mother, I said, "Ma, I just want you to know this role is a little risque, a little tough." And she said, "Well, it's NBC, honey. It can't be that bad." And I said, "Okay, all right." So time came, and the episode aired on NBC. And after the episode, my mother called. I was up in Connecticut watching the show, and my mother called and said, "Well, son," I said, "What'd you think, Mom?" She said, "Well, you were unsavory." And I said, "Well, thank you. That's a big compliment." And then she said, "And I had all of my Sunday school class over to watch it." So all of the ladies from her Sunday school class were there in the living room watching this episode. They loved it. They thought it was, they knew that it was acting, of course. Yeah. And then my grandmother was also there. My grandmother was my biggest fan. So that was exciting for her to see her grandson on television. But yeah, mom was a little shocked, a little surprised.